I'm working on the accountability, social accountability sub-theme within the participation and inclusion work stream of BASIC. So we are actually working in a couple of places, Somalia and Iraq. And in Somalia, it has been a protracted crisis for many years now, and a covariate crisis, climate change effects such as locusts, drought, flooding, the whole cycle, a lot of food insecurity over the last 20 years. There's also been, conflict and a nascent government, and most recently, a new social protection system. But Somalia in particular, it has been a very top-down approach, and it kind of has to be in terms of linking up to the different systems of government in Somalia. There are the federated states, there are the different regions, and then there's a lot of clan-based authorities. And so what that means for a lot of communities on the ground, and also for the local authorities that are supposed to be providing the social assistance, is that programs may be designed far away and then implemented in Somalia. And then one thing that has been kind of an issue throughout the response in Somalia has been access. So how do you even reach communities? And then once you do reach those communities, there may be some dynamics that people are aware of or not. And that's why I think that it's been really exciting with BASIC to be able to work with my colleagues in Somalia, Camila and Guhad, who are actually in Somalia right now, to be able to unpack some of those dynamics and try to understand social assistance, flip the narrative and say, okay, we're not going to look at the program. We're going to start with the community and then see which programs they're accessing and how this works out for them. We're trying to understand essentially what the accountability pathways look like in practice when we're providing social assistance in a crisis. We really want to understand how people experience it, and then taking a step back, looking at what are the cultures of participation that enable people to be more involved in how they receive social assistance. We are sticking with qualitative for a number of reasons. There's a lot of data out there on Somalia, whether it's looking at the context itself or surveying people on their needs and their perceptions of the assistance they receive. And so based on what we were trying to look at, it just made a lot of sense to stick to qual methods. We're primarily using in-depth interviews and the kind of one-on-one that it affords us to dig a bit deeper into these issues and have people speak frankly and openly. In particular, woman to woman, or with someone who's from the area, and so that was something really important to us. But in Iraq, what's going to be interesting in the coming months is that we're going to be looking at Jackie Shaw's lived experience methodologies with the participatory research, and try to apply it a bit more to what we call the frontline responders. So those who are providing social assistance and interact with communities on a regular basis, and see what their experiences are like in terms of trying to deliver accountable social assistance. Because again, we tend to focus on, okay, what mechanisms do people have to complain about the assistance they receive? Do they understand what they're entitled to receive? But we often don't explore the perspectives of people who are on the ground trying to navigate these big challenges and crises and deal with these overwhelming needs with relatively limited programs. The first thing with any crisis when you're trying to do research is just chasing people down and making sure that you've got the right people in the room. I think the other thing that's particularly challenging in Somalia is that a lot of it is kind of clan-based. And so it's really about unpacking those dynamics and understanding who is in a position of authority, who can speak out, who feels comfortable speaking out. So there's a lot of kind of navigating that. And I think that's also why for us, it made a lot of sense to stick with qual methods that are more fluid and flexible than the kind of quant methods that would require us to have, lots of people on the ground surveying many different people and dealing with that. I think the other thing that is, if I'm honest, a bit difficult is that we did this global literature review. It was super kind of interesting to see the evidence that's out there about social accountability on the social protection side and accountability to affected populations on the humanitarian side. But we noticed they weren't really coming together and they weren't looking at it from people's perspectives. And so we're really excited to bring that point of view to the body of knowledge. The thing is, the findings are a little bit let's say, discouraging sometimes, which is that people are not aware of the different types of social assistance, or that local authorities don't feel empowered to say that they're the providers of social assistance because they weren't involved in the design phase. One of the, I think, the striking quotes we had was that they felt that those who were designing the social assistance programs would come with a menu of options, but also a pre-cooked meal. And so they kind of felt like, okay, this is the way the program is designed. This is who we're reaching. This is how much they're going to receive, whether it's cash assistance, but it's mainly cash assistance in Somalia. And they say when someone brings you food, you eat it. So that's kind of the analogy. And I think that the next steps are going to be really interesting to say, okay, we talked to these people. This is what we found. Now what can we do with this information? One of the things I've noticed as a humanitarian practitioner is that we tend to get stuck in either kind of a sector pigeonhole or some kind of, methodology pigeonhole saying, I'm a statistician or I'm an anthropologist. I don't understand quant. What's wonderful about BASIC is we've got everybody in the room. And we've got the kind of common objectives. We're working towards slightly different research questions, but there are such strong links about making social assistance more accessible, more understandable, and ultimately, in our case, more accountable. That just makes me really excited because it's more of an environment where if we reach our limits in terms of maybe we get access to a quant data set and it's not something that in our team we have a capacity to handle, we've got this kind of basic network that allows us to be able to do more with what we have. One of the things that we're really excited to do is to bring those perspectives up to the community of practice. So on the social accountability side, but also on the humanitarian side, to get people to think a little bit more about what could be the options to involve people in decision making, not just to inform them of the program and then get their feedback on how the program is going. So I'm really excited about looking into the practical aspects of that. And frankly, what people have already told us is pretty practical. It's inviting, certain people at the beginning of the design phase. I think the other thing that personally I'm quite interested in, that I hope BASIC can be kind of pivotal or instrumental in doing, is reconsidering how we design social assistance programs in the beginning. A lot of the way in which we think we're being accountable to, let's say, taxpayer money is by having very robust proposals and all these needs analyses and the most, incredible up-to-date data. We're actually leaving communities behind in that process. So I'm hoping we can have a broader conversation about some design tweaks that would enable people to be able to co-design those programs and at least be able to make decisions together with those who are providing social assistance.